Welcome to the Accounting Arc Podcast, where analysis, reaction, and comedy collide to tackle the big topics from the world of accounting and beyond. Join our trio of transformation agents as they discuss the hottest topics in and out of the profession, from breaking down industry trends, to reacting to everyday events, to uncovering the hidden humor in numbers. With wisdom, insight, and a dash of levity, they're proving that accounting isn't just about the numbers. It's about life. Because after all, accounting is in everything. The Accounting Arc Podcast starts now.
All right, welcome everyone back to a new year with the Accounting Arc Podcast. And this special New Year's episode brings us back together, and we're going to look ahead. We're kind of going to reflect on actually some of our predictions from last year. And we actually think we did pretty good. So you might want to actually pay attention to what we're going to predict for this year that's coming up. So this episode is really designed to help spark some strategic thinking for you as you kind of equip yourself with what is going to be some of our actionable guidance to navigate the challenges, and innovations that are going to shape this year. So let's get started. Byron, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So had a couple predictions last year that I think landed pretty well. Maybe I was riding on kind of the energy going into it, but one of them that I was looking at was the CPA licensure and education pathways, seeing continued evolution there, and I honestly, there was more evolution than I even expected. Rewind to January 2025 when we were thinking about this. I mean, the number of states, I want to say it's over 20, I think, that have either something in motion or already passed with respect to alternative pathways. That was definitely like two thumbs up and probably more than I expected, frankly. The other one that I would say that landed, that I don't know that it was clearly defined enough to maybe say like, yes, it's a win, but around culture, defining a competitive factor of firms. I would say, over 2025, just from being out in the profession, meeting firms, meeting a lot of new firms this year, I have definitely seen a lot of energy around the culture of firms and the people of firms that was stronger than, any year prior. That is definitely an energy that I'm excited to see continue into 2026. But, that was something I think I specifically said culture will become the defining competitive factor for firms. I don't know if it's the defining competitive factor, but it is definitely become a competitive factor for firms in 2025, I think. Liz, any thoughts on your predictions?
Yeah, so in reflecting on my predictions, I realized I'm a really positive, optimistic person. My biggest prediction was that the profession would shift from fear to embracing AI. And I still think we are on that journey, guys. I spent a lot of time talking to people last year at Intuit Connect, and they were still pretty scared of what's coming and what's happening and where that's at. So I do think there is a shift where people are more optimistic and more positive about what the potential of this technology is, but they're still not really embracing AI in the way I had hoped. I do think my next prediction that better data processing would lead to better advisor quality and economic outcomes is true. We're seeing that through studies, right? Where the more timely information put in the hands of small businesses, the better decisions are made. And we are getting faster and faster at getting that information into the right hands. So that I do think is happening. It's not happening as fast as I would want, but also optimistic, positive over here. I think another prediction I made is like small foundational changes right now will have a big future impact, an outsized future impact, so to speak. And I do think that that has changed. I think that people are understanding the need for data integrity, the need for consistency, the need for access, accessibility, and centralization. And those types of core foundational understandings have changed what you can do with technology in the future. And my final big prediction was that the younger generations will reshape what we're doing as a profession. And I do think that that's happened and is continuing to happen and has to happen because we have a great wave of retirement occurring simultaneously to a smaller new generation of accountants graduating. And that shift is just inevitable and the tech is accelerating it.
Well
Yeah.
said, yeah. Building off of your enthusiasm on AI, I also had predicted that Gen AI would accelerate, or adoption of Gen AI would accelerate dramatically last year, and I definitely think we saw that. And then we saw the introduction of, and then we saw the introduction of agentic AI, which I still kind of question whether that's actually really getting into production sense. I think we're starting to see some of that, but still not fully production yet. So I might be a little off on the total adoption there. However, I did predict that AI will radically compress software development timelines and potentially make some of the software engineers irrelevant. I do feel like that came true. That was evidenced by a lot of the layoffs that we saw with a lot of the big tech companies. And I think we continue to see, like every week, I feel like there's an article about how somebody's either laying off or these platforms are making more progress and doing code on their own. So we've got that. But I am going to put the little caveat too on the agentic AI, where I just had a realization a couple of weeks ago that agentic AI really is sort of the next evolution of enterprise service bus. So if those of you that remember that back in the early 2000s, that never quite really took off. And when you look at the way agentic AI is, it's actually the next evolution of enterprise service bus. So I'm going to predict that that's actually not going to happen. Sorry, jumping into the new stuff. Had to get that in there though. Like Liz was saying, the younger generation's reshaping. One of my predictions actually ties into that, which is that as accountants, we will have longer career relevance than engineers. The center did some initial research last year where we surveyed accountants from all different points in their career, and it was a resounding 85% said they are not worried at all about AI replacing them. So I think there's a lot of good relevance there. Despite all of the advances that we saw in AI, accountants are still feeling very strong that AI is not going to replace them, and I completely agree with that. Last
That's
prediction
awesome.
I had was that reaction style podcasts would become more relevant. And I'll tell you too, I know that we did more reaction style stuff in ours, and thanks to those of you that have sent ideas in. And in fact, this episode is a result of somebody telling us, hey, we would love to kind of hear what happened with your predictions last year and what you're thinking for the new year. And so we invite all of you out there listening, if you have an episode that you want us to do, give us that topic. If you want, give us some of that outline on how you want us to, or what kind of main points you want us to hit. And we're happy to try and do an episode there. I feel like that one did pretty good. So it looks like we all did pretty good on our predictions there.
No doubt.
Yeah. So
no
for
doubt.
2026 predictions, do we want to start with the big ones or the small ones?
We should build up, I think. Why don't we start with some of the smaller predictions and get to maybe some of those bigger, bolder predictions for 2026?
Okay. My small prediction is that from a terminology perspective, AI becomes the new cloud.
Interesting.
I think you got to explain that one some more. I see Byron and I are both kind of processing.
You're like, what are we talking about? Okay, so if you remember, back in the day when the first big, well, I can't say first, but for my generation, the first big evolution of technology was going from system-based, server-based, very difficult to access systems into cloud-based and accessible from anywhere, right? And that transition became a really big part of our vocabulary around accounting and around technology and around what we do, right? And it was really the first time you saw, well, not the first time, but it was like the biggest revolution of accountants going from doing the day-to-day accounting to implementing and managing systems, right? Like previously, we'd always had kind of an IT counterpart that did that piece of it. And in the cloud, it became easy for accountants to actually implement these systems without that tech experience because it was not like all the security was taken care of for you. You didn't have to go through all of that, right? And I think AI, from the perspective of vendors, will become the new cloud. So where they used to say, this is a cloud-based solution, right? They're going to be like, oh, this is an AI-based solution.
I see. So it's kind of that AI will kind of dominate the marketing around the innovation of software
Yes.
for accountants. Because you're right. I mean, it's so funny you say that. When I had my infrastructure hosting company, my cloud hosting company, our domain was CPA Cloud. And that ever since my breakup with that organization, I've wanted to own that domain again, but it has not become available. But it recently expired, so I'm kind of watching it closely. But that's how much the term cloud was, I mean, ubiquitous with respect to evaluating technologies. Is it desktop or is it cloud-based software? So what you're saying is, as consumers of software, like this is going to be a big decision point with respect to is it AI functional, maybe even AI first type of software versus just your average everyday software, which may even have some AI from an ML perspective in it, but probably hasn't always been marketed that way.
Yep. So I think it'll change terminology and it will become the new cloud in our wording. All right. What are your small predictions, guys?
Let me build off of yours because I kind of only half agree with you, but mine is related, which is I think we're going to see AI powered or something like that included as part of the functionality stack. So I still see AI primarily as assistive, and that it will, which I think is what you're kind of saying too, that it'll be the norm in all of the products, or I'm going to actually say the leading products that we work with are all going to have some type of AI assisted functionality in there, whether it's machine learning, whether it's Gen AI. We're going to see all of that really come to the fore. And it almost becomes, if you don't have it, you are the legacy system because you're in that old world.
And I'll build on that as well, Donnie. You had a prediction last year around agentic AI. And I agree with you. I don't think we saw in 2026, we saw a lot of conversations about agentic AI. I don't think we saw any like really meaningful implementations of agentic AI in that I came aware of, at least in the accounting space. So I do think 2026 will be the year that we will see agents begin to show up and actually perform meaningful tasks or processes in accounting firms.
So I think that's really interesting. I think there's like this bifurcation of what's happening in the agentic AI space right now. And so there's two theses that I think will win. One being, I think there will be a whole new type of firm that is focused completely on implementing this type of agentic AI. And consulting on that, right? Like every time there's a new technology, there's always a new consulting firm to do it for you, right? And we've been doing that work this year, working with large companies actually on agentic AI solutions and helping them vet and figure out where and how these tools can support them in their accounting processes internally. And there are whole businesses being built around, like, I've created this one agent, let me now implement it across every accounting firm that I can, right? And sell to that situation. But So I think that's one. And then I think the other that will actually create more of an economic benefit long term are the companies that will be built on agentic AI talent instead of human operations. And I think that is where it is absolutely fascinating what is happening. And this can accelerate accounting firms. This can be any type of business, right? But in terms of like, let's look at a typical tax firm, right? Tax right now is one of the hottest topics in terms of AI coming in to solve because it is, from a research perspective, the most well documented area, right? Which makes it the easiest, so to speak, to get a database of information for an AI to work with. But how most of those tools are being developed is evolving. It was previously train one LLM. Now it is, how do you get a team of agents looking at this as you would in a big firm, right? You would have a team of accountants throwing ideas back and forth, writing memos, then reviewing them against different protocol or different ideas or databases in total. So I think a lot of that is evolving as we speak. And I think 2026 will be the year that we get more definition around how these new forms of business will function.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm still I'm half with you because again, I look at the challenges because basically what that comes down to is orchestration and interoperability. Those are the same things Enterprise Service Bus was supposed to solve, and the problem was with the systems. A lot of the apps didn't support that even after the APIs were developed, which is going to be the equivalent of the MVCs. On the agentic side, like it still didn't solve that problem because of the lack of adoption and the lack of the strictness around it. And so I still kind of like, I don't know if I could see that happening. But I do agree with you that firms that look at it from that perspective. And I think this comes back to the whole automation side where like when we work with clients, we often go start with a blank sheet of paper. What would this look like if you started today and built this today? Because otherwise you build in those old concepts in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And, to your point, Donnie, like there's different, let's call them personas of accounting firms when it comes to their data and resources, right? You have very large organizations that have really kind of custom built their data stack and everything like that, which frankly will give them some latitude to be able to, apply these tools because they kind of own all elements of where it exists. And then you've got, this middle of off-the-shelf software that may or may not allow access to the data or the resources. And then you've got this other tier, which has been in this like modern best of breed approach where they have systems that are going to allow access to, the interoperability of these systems and will give them the ability to like really move quickly and apply these new technologies as they show up. So, I think there's definitely like this stuck middle that is going to have a hard time, but I think on the high side and the low side, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to apply these new technologies this year.
I totally agree with that. That would be my one really big call out to the listeners. If, the big firms are already kind of looking at it, but often when you're in that small firm, you think you're the last one. This is one of those cases you're going to actually be able to be one of the first ones because you don't have this big infrastructure to manage.
Yeah. A lot of opportunity there. So another prediction that I don't know where this lands. I guess it still feels to me like a little prediction, but just because I think it's very clear and obvious that we are maybe already into this path, but I believe the GL war is going to be revived in 2026. There's, a number of players out there who are building AI first general ledgers who want to take on the behemoths of the profession. And I think 2026, we're going to see, I'm not predicting necessarily any major shifts, but there is definitely going to be a lot of energy in that space that I think is going to be fun to watch and potentially participate in.
I think that's a really interesting prediction, honestly. And yes, it'll all be really interesting to see what happens. And I would take a step back to look at there will be companies and there will be technology companies in particular that have serviced firms for a very long time that will die because their code is not built AI first. And the speed at which we can develop in an AI native environment has accelerated to the point where they may just be replaced. So there's like a full, we've all heard the term like replatforming by big tech companies many times, right? This is beyond what that is. This is, you need to almost start from scratch to solve this problem in an AI native environment. And so I think 2026 we'll see some players that probably we thought would last forever get sold to other companies or private equity or bigger technology that will take their client lists and build a new solution AI native and have the capital to do that. Or we'll see big companies do more, or big vendors do more fundraising to be able to do that themselves if they're big enough, right? But it is very hard for small players in the space to reinvent an entire platform for a new tech.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that feeds into what Donny was saying too about, there's all these different pieces of firm architecture that weren't solved by other solutions. And that the intricacies and the layers of requirements and adoption get bigger and bigger the bigger the company is, right? And so for small firms, for the first time in a very long time, we have an extreme strategic advantage. So this gets into one of my big predictions, which is because we are small and nimble and have less of that architecture requirement, we will be able to adopt these tools faster at this level, and it will accelerate and augment any advisor's ability to outperform, right? To go above and beyond what we were capable of before.
Completely agree with that. I'm gonna adjust your earlier part of your prediction, which was on the vendors. I don't think the existing big vendors are gonna get bought up. I think the new vendors are all gonna come in and take all the business away. What I've been seeing is kind of pent up. I want to change, because firms come to me for that. A lot of firms come to me for that, and I'm like, wait a year. There's going to be stuff that's coming out in 2026. So here we are on 2026 now. And we're going to see some of these big tax platforms, which hasn't changed in a long time. We're going to see several new tax platforms come out. We're going to see new practice management platforms come out. And I think that's going to really revolutionize and draw away from the traditionally big vendors who will do a slow death as they just keep the laggards and the people who don't want to change on there.
I think these middle-sized vendors that are not huge but are well implemented in their one core thing. They have a good market share for their core thing. I think they will look at either raising capital, getting debt, or selling to be able to make this next revolution. Because most of them don't have free cash flow in excess to be able to rebuild the entire product, right? I don't think it's the very large, like the Thomson Reuters or the CCHs. They'll survive because they have enough money to just do whatever they want, right? Like they can reallocate funds from something else to rebuild this, and they have the client list, and they have the longevity, and they have the databases and the information to do it really well and train the new agentic AI, whatever architecture they go with, in a native way. But I do think we'll see more consolidation of those middle and the small tools. And then I think the new tools, I think you're totally right, the new tools coming in that are all AI native will take market share. But we have two problems in this industry. One being the ultimate answer is either, if you're a vendor, right, it's either sell to one of those large companies I just mentioned that have had the market share forever and acquire, and half the time just acquire to shut things down or take client lists, right? And then the other problem that you have, so like, the VC rounds, whatever, right now AI is overpriced, right? So you have VCs investing money at a valuation that is totally not sustainable. And our market right now is supported by not reality, in my opinion, which means that like when there is a market correction to reality, we have a problem. And it's the same thing we saw when investments went into the cloud and went into like websites, like the dot-com boom. It's the same thing. We're overvaluing, we're investing money at this rate to try and quote unquote beat the market and beat it all, but you can't beat it when it's rapidly changing and accelerating pace. And so these companies that overraised will go under, they'll sell, they'll have other issues. So that's part of it. And then we have the competitive landscape as well, where historically speaking, we have a few major players that are kind of nasty when it comes to people coming in and encroaching on their territory. And that means smear campaigns from a marketing perspective. That means flat out stealing. And that also means that they do everything they can to attack reputations and shut down small companies if they can't acquire them or hostily acquire them. So I think all of those factors will affect the landscape, and it won't be as positive as that picture you just painted, which would be wonderful if that's what actually happened. Like all these beautiful little AI babies came out and just were so amazing. They took all the market share and we had, this happily ever after story, but there's competing market factors that'll affect that.
I completely agree with you. We're already seeing the consolidation started last year. I agree with you. I think that's just going to continue. I'm hoping that these startups are going to join into, let's say, the good side rather than the legacy side. I'm going to call it the bad side, the legacy side, because we've all seen what happens when the legacy acquires stuff. It's just where things go to die.
In today's world, cyber threats don't just target big businesses. They target you. Your small office or home office is at risk.
There are a lot of solutions out there. Not all of them have the same level of security. The Soho Protection Package is designed to provide proactive cybersecurity solutions.
If your firm is looking for assistance in developing your personalized IT policy, connect with an advisor today at link.improvetheworld.net/Soho Cyber. Gain peace of mind that you have the right technology in place to stay protected.
And I think that'll be a matter of the founders, right? I think there's founders who are creating these technologies to actually with a mission within the profession to better the profession. And then there's founders who are here to exit. And there's going to be, I think, a bunch of those this year that they'll just hit the eject. They'll get some big cash from, one of these larger vendors, and just, what'll happen will happen because they're really not here to actually have the lasting impact that some of the others are. So, it's going to be interesting. I think there might be some surprises, and probably maybe even for the three of us, there'll probably be a lot of it doesn't shock me moments.
I would agree.
So, quick question for you both. So, there's been a lot of talk about this AI bubble, way broader than the accounting profession, just as a whole. To a lot of your point, Liz, of, the markets aren't necessarily rational based on actual data, a lot of emotion and excitement that's driving that. There's also, a lot of questions about all of the movement of money and how that is increasing the value of these organizations. Do you think 2026 we see any type of correction in the broader AI market, or does this bubble just continue to grow?
I think we'll see it flatten out very quickly in 2026 as we really move into this year and understand where things are going. The rate at which development is happening is not slowing down. And so I think there will be a multitude of new companies entering that want capital. And I think that all of these VC firms that have been investing at these crazy, valuations will now have options of where their investment dollars are going. And as we know, if there's more supply, there's lower prices, right? And I think that that's going to happen. And so we'll see kind of a flattening out of that. And then I do think it will go down towards the end of 2026. Heading into 2027, I think we'll see more realistic valuations around these AI companies. But we're also going to see the fastest rate of development, the fastest growth of companies that has ever happened. And we have to see, in order for these companies to win, we have to see a complete revolution of the way that they're run, which is not happening so far. Like so far, these big companies that are raising this type of capital for AI development are still running them like you would a typical SaaS company, and that doesn't work anymore. Building out people first from a perspective of, oh, we need people to do all of these jobs. That doesn't work. Like, no, we need AI agents governed by people that actually understand what is happening here. And these automated back office processes don't require this type of human capital. And so when we're looking at those big AI companies raising hundreds of millions of dollars, they're building teams. They're spending all their money on teams and marketing and people, and the same way you would in a SaaS company if you were trying to scale it to a unicorn exceptionally fast, except they're going to be beat. My prediction is they will be beat by the companies that are scrappy and utilize the agentic AI and change the complete process and the complete business model versus trying to replicate a SaaS business model with a new technology.
No doubt. What do you think, Donny?
I think this is such a hard one because I kind of want the bubble to burst already because I'm so tired of all the hype that's going on. So I want to say, like, I want it to burst this year. And I don't know if it actually will, but I want it to burst this year because we need to get off of this. I feel like, and we need to course correct now so that the money, and it's kind of like Liz said, so that the money actually goes to the ones that are actually moving in the right direction. My other big worry always with this is just the lack of ethical lens that's being put against a lot of the development, especially at the LLM platform level, foundational LLM level. That really scares me to no end. If any of them, if anyone follows my LinkedIn feed, it's probably every week, if not every other week, I'm posting something where we're seeing additional risk, and it's sort of like a race to the bottom in terms of everyone wants to get to Gen AI, or AGI, but no one's paying attention to the risks. We're seeing the deaths. We're seeing the other things start to occur. There's a lot going in underneath that's not making it into the usual news, but I'm starting to see it surface. So with a lot of that coming up, I think there needs to be that reckoning. And I don't know when that's going to occur because I just don't see, especially with this administration, I don't see that level of accountability coming out with anything. But that's kind of why I also am like, I want this bubble to burst so that there's a correction
Yeah.
and a reevaluation of it before something bad actually happens.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Liz.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've been thinking a lot about that and the financial bubble around all of it. I hadn't really like drawn a connection between those things, but I do see what you're talking about, and I have had conversations recently with folks who are concerned about even adopting it because of the unresolved risks and concerns around it. That being said, from what I understand, we're also going to see a bunch of IPOs in 2026 with some of these companies, which is interesting because we kind of like everything turned into like VC, PE investment. Like the IPO was not sexy for the last 5 years or so, maybe 10 years, I don't know. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with these IPOs and when, the general market is going to be able to invest in this space from a pure stock perspective. So I don't have a prediction with respect to whether the bubble will burst because I frankly think it should have burst 2 years ago, but it just keeps growing.
Yeah, well, back to Donnie's point around data ethics, and the like ethical and like even moral considerations that there are around how these systems are being built and created. I think not enough people are talking about it. Not enough people are thinking about it. And one of the things, I mean, I've been talking about this forever because I think it's very important to understand how these models can accelerate bias in a meaningful way, right? Like, and it's very true that when you truncate data and then you pull it back out in another way, it will absolutely pull in biases that are out there. And when we're using the general internet as training material, we are accelerating some really awful biases that are very ugly. and create bigger issues from a societal perspective. And so I wanted to draw attention to that from a prediction perspective. I do believe more companies will think about this and will start building this into the way that they're structuring their AI moats, right? And so, this past year, 2025, we saw a lot of direct interaction with LLMs, people directly working with one specific LLM, sometimes two, not a ton of work where we're building new architecture that utilizes these underlying it, right? That was starting in 2025. I think 2026 we'll see more of those architecture things happening, and we'll see more of the ethical requirements, boundaries, more ethical agentic AI being put into these architectures to pull that out and change the answers that are coming back and be more cognizant of what that looks like.
Yeah, I like that. That is, I think, the very hopeful direction that we go into.
I'm very optimistic, guys. Recklessly so.
I mean, I'll add to the optimism in that what I'm actually hoping for, and I'm actually going to be pushing this, so I might be actually trying to help make this prediction come through, which is better AI governance, which in the end turns back to better vendor due diligence. And then tying that also back into things like ESG reporting so that we understand, because part of my concern is not just the data side, but if you look at the data centers and the impacts that they're having on the communities where they're being built, increases in electricity costs, like all of these kind of trickle economic effects of these data centers and where they're going and how they're being built. And part of that tying back into the circular part of the investment that Byron was building. That's why I look at that. There's like a much bigger bubble here than we saw with the .com or .bomb. And I think this is going to be more like an atomic bomb rather than a bomb when it actually occurs, which is why I'm like, I want it to burst sooner when it's smaller rather than later when it's bigger. Because if Byron's prediction comes through with the movement of the investment from VCs and PEs to the public, now the public loses out rather than these PEs and VCs who are actually designed somewhat, at least VCs are designed to somewhat take risk and take a loss. And once the public is invested in it, then it's going to be really hard to stop.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I hope that we don't end up with a bunch of IPOs. Like, I think you're right, Byron. I think there is an acceleration of timeline to that. But that is also an exit, right? Like if we're looking at these businesses, that is a type of exit. It's an exit to public. But there's an increase of crowdsourcing in every state. There's more regulation coming out around how to do that safely and what that looks like. And so there's already more public investment than historically there would have been in a new tech bubble. But, it's always fun to see what happens in reality. Any other big predictions you guys have?
So I'd like to change gears from AI. And I've been trying to decide if I want to take a position on this one. I think there's going to be a major event with a PE-backed firm this year that's going to create some drama. And when I say I can't decide if I want to take a position, I think there's a lot of risk with we've talked about it in prior episodes about the alternative practice structure, and the PE-backed firm, which is creating a lot of risk, that I'm trying to be optimistic like Liz and say, you know what, one of these PE firms is going to do something like amazing and wild and awesome, and the whole profession is going to say, yes, that's the way to do it, and we're going to adopt that. However, I think that there's going to be a reckoning with somebody. Something's going to happen. It may not even be necessarily specifically directly related to the fact that it's a PE-backed organization, but I think there's a lot of risk that's going to happen, and I think there's going to be some sort of event that is really going to create a lot of discourse again around the PE-backed accounting firm.
Ooh, I think that's a really interesting prediction. And I say that because you're looking at history, right? Like every 20, the 30 years,
They're
so
due,
to
right?
speak. There's been a giant explosion of something having to do with our industry. We are due for another one. You're totally correct. And let's hope it's not this year.
Or it's positive. Like maybe it could be positive, but I'm probably 80-20 on which direction that goes.
Well, the PE entering our space in the aggressive manner that it has is definitely creating a wealth divide that will only exacerbate already failing industry. So we're due for an explosion of some negative sort.
I had not even thought about that. That really does scare me. And I think you're right. We are at that point. This is going to be kind of like the economic bubble one for me, where I'm like, I want it to happen sooner so that it stops more of it from occurring, and we get to
So
see
that we
that
know.
out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a Debbie Downer moment. So another direction, I believe that we will have breakthroughs in quantum computing this year that will make the expense of some of these AI systems decrease in a way that will benefit everybody.
That's exciting.
That's another one that's I think is interesting and scary, because if we do have good breakthroughs in quantum computing, that also means we're going to have increased threat as well, because we're going to be able to break a lot of the encryption that we're currently using, and it'll be irrelevant. So that scares me too on that. So I'm going to actually hope that one doesn't come true.
Well, it'll also accelerate the rate in which you
inevitable.
can create new encryption protocols, right? So, like, yes, there is the potential security threat if used for ill regard quickly, but there's also the potential to use it to be more secure and brace for that, right?
Yeah, we'll see. That one also to me comes back to this whole data center takes a lot of power, all that kind of stuff, which has the additional implications. So while yes,
Mhm.
I totally think there's a lot of benefits from quantum computing, I don't know that we're ready for, and we're not even leveraging that tech that we have right now well enough. Is kind of the way I look at that right now. And of course, I recently have been watching Quantum Leap, and so I look at that and I have another lens where I'm like, yeah, we're not ready for time travel yet either. So
It's so funny. I went
Well,
immediately to time travel in my brain when Liz said that.
Well, it's really interesting when you start like digging into the research they're doing around qubits and like how they're stabilized now instead of at like almost absolute zero. They're stabilizing them closer to room temperature, which is really incredible. Utilizing new chip like protocols, and these quantum computers are coming online like to be utilized, right? And so the architecture side of it is fascinating, but also like, yes, we could go into time travel physics and understanding like why that's actually not really possible with our current level of understanding of quantum computing. But there is a chance that we are borrowing quantum compute power from other universes to do our own computing, which is a whole other like fascinating area of theoretical physics that kind of just breaks your brain. But it goes from like magic doesn't exist, it's technology. And then you go into like theoretical physics and it's like, oh wait, it's magic.
It's actually magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, no doubt.
so for magic, for my other prediction, I'm going to come back to Byron's, actually one of Byron's predictions that we didn't talk about yet, which was last year he predicted a little some deviation from the billable hour as a primary KPI, which I think we've seen a little bit, but actually have not seen a ton of progress. I think we see some progressives, especially smaller firms, moving away from that as they had already started. But I think that we are finally going to see that come true in 2026. I'm seeing a lot of movement. I'm working with a couple of groups of firms that are actually actively trying to work with it and trying to move that decisioning where it can be implemented in mid and larger firms. So I'm going to predict that one, Byron, your
Awesome.
prediction may come true this year.
Nice.
I feel like
awesome.
The billable hour is a nasty word.
Wait, I mean, gosh, we could do a whole. We should cue that up for another episode. Actually, that would be a fun conversation to have. That's definitely one where, yeah,
and talk about the death of a business model and why it's still clinging to life.
That sounds fun. Well, I'm going to squeeze in one last prediction. And I don't think this is that extreme really, but we've also talked about like vibe coding and this trend of kind of personal software. I've I've already this year talked to firms who have implemented, like actually are using in production some versions of vibe coded software in their organizations. But that's like the geeks, it's like the geeks in the corner that are doing something like crazy and cool. I think 2026, that is going to become a conversation that people maybe aren't necessarily like implementing, but I think it's going to be more of you're going to see managing partners come into their staff saying, "Have you vibe coded this before?" Like they're going to be asking about wanting to vibe code a solution for it.
All I hear is security hole, security hole, security hole.
I mean,
There's all kind of red flags going off in my head of that.
yeah, I don't disagree with you, but the convenience of these things, like you just know. I mean, people are still emailing like very secure information. And it's about convenience. So hopefully there will be better tools to ensure the security within these systems, but I just think it's going to be more of a common conversation in firms looking to vibe code stuff.
I could go with that from the analogy to vibe coding to me is creating macros and self-recording macros, which we've seen that in even something like Excel. We saw it come back again with RPA and then now vibe coding. So I'm kind of like, I see where you're going. I don't think that's going to take off because these other ones didn't really take off.
Yeah, I mean, individuals, I think will always, like the right kind of lazy individuals will always try to figure out a way to not have to do the manual process over and over and over again. But I think holistic architecture things will not be vibe coded. I do think there are some firms that are doing that right now, and it's very interesting and risky. I love the automation ideology. I don't think vibe coding should be in the hands of everybody. Because most people are not technically savvy enough to not fall into the pitfalls of what that could do.
True, and it's so easy right now for anybody to get a license and just spin it up. It's scary.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you could build whatever the heck you want, but that's always kind of been an option, right? Like I started building software when I was like 19 years old for different parts of my job that were awful, and I didn't want to actually do them. And they were not terrible, right? But like at the same time, there were huge risks in that that I took on behalf of a firm without their consent because I didn't know any better, right? Like I was an intern being like, this is boring. I don't want to do this. Let me write a computer program to do it for me, right?
Well, and it required
and I think we're going to hit that level again.
Well, that's it. And there was a barrier to entry to doing that. Like, yes, you could do that, but very few people had the skill set to do what you did back then. So you didn't really have to be concerned about it. Now, like it's literally free account unlovable. Look, I just fed it like this stuff and watch nothing to it. Let me share it with my buddy at this firm and see what they're doing. And the risk is high, but I think we're going to see a lot more of it in 2026.
So I think we're going to see more firms come out with policies as to like how to govern that in a way that's meaningful, right? Like what are you allowed to share from firm data sets? What are you allowed to give access to these applications, right? Is it everybody can give whatever the heck they want? Or is it like, oh no, actually you can't just give it access to your entire SharePoint architecture. You need to like gatekeep this in a certain way and make sure we don't have personally identifiable information. And I could go on and on. But I do think the policy and the governance around this becomes exceptionally important. And I also think there's a complete lack of that happening in a meaningful way.
Completely agree with you, Liz. And actually, you just validated. So one of our strategic imperatives for the center is to have a whole policy governance framework for firms that we're going to be kind of co-creating, working with a bunch of firms and then publishing out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Great. Yeah.
Well, we've gotten a lot of predictions for this year. I feel like we could probably do part 2 of this episode another day.
I think we're going to need to run the transcript through a LLM to figure out all of the predictions because I think we weaved in a lot. It was awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, fun as always, and hopefully the listeners out there, you got something that you can take away. My biggest one for you is if you are in a small firm, make sure you're following what's going on because you have the biggest advantage right now to take advantage of all these AI technologies, shift your practice, become AI first, and overtake perhaps these larger firms in what you're doing.
About it? How
And
about
don't
it? And
forget,
share
guys,
your
if you have
predictions in the
ideas.
comments. Yeah,
Yeah. Or ideas for new episodes, let us know.
that's true too.
All right, we'll see you all next time. Bye.
See
Bye.
y'all.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. Find out more at our website, www.improvetheworld.net. And if you're interested in sharing your own transformation stories, please contact us there.